The Green Party won this by-election by copying the Labour sectarian playbook, didn't they? 100 years Labour's held the Gorton and Denton seat, one of the safest Labour seats in the country. It is a large left-wing voter base, the seventh safest left-wing seat, I believe, in Britain. So it is quite remarkable for Reform to come second place there, that is for sure, despite I know many people will be disappointed. But by all accounts, Labour should have come first or even a close second, but they were pushed all the way into a humiliating third place. Now, interestingly, some of their MPs have accused the Greens of essentially running a dog whistle campaign. Take a little look at this clip here on your screen. You can see Labour MP there saying dog whistle. Well, I say pot kettle, really, Labour, isn't it? Pot kettle. However, I do have to agree with this Labour MP because we did see leaflets targeting people in foreign languages, mostly focusing on Gaza issues, with accompanying images of Starmer with Narendra Modi and a man I believe Muslim voters really despise, frankly, as well, of course, as the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy with Netanyahu. Need I say any more on that one, really? But it's a bit rich of the Labour Party to be calling this a dog whistle by the Greens, isn't it? Because this is straight out of their own sectarian playbook. It really is. For over a decade now, Labour's been pandering to Muslims and foreigners for their votes. Here's a picture of them trying to win over Muslim voters by showing a picture of Boris Johnson with India's Narendra Modi. Again, same as I was saying just a moment ago. This was in a seat, Batley and Spen, where 20% of the electorate are primarily South Asian. Oh, and of course, how could I forget this one? Rayner pandering to Muslims for votes too.
You were there for me, and I don't believe I could have done that without you.
Sorry, Labour. It's a bit too little too late to be coming to the realisation that a large proportion of Muslim voters have abandoned you, a group you chose to prioritise over your working class voters time and time again. But I say this, let the Greens own this mess now. They've ran their entire campaign there without seemingly once mentioning their positions on trans issues, the environment, or even their plans to legalise drugs. Just like what happened in Iran. Once the Islamists assume control of the party, they'll very quickly get rid of these useful idiots on the left who spent years pandering to them. But for Labour, I suspect they will learn the hard way, as the Tories are learning right now. If you betray your values and ignore the will of your core voters, you'll be punished severely at the ballot box for it. All right, let's chat to my panel. Senior reporter at Guido Fawkes, Ellie Wheatley's here, and trade unionist Andy Twelves. Ellie, I'll start with you. Listen, when I saw this dog whistle tweet and I seen other Labour MPs all of a sudden getting really upset about it, well, actually, it's quite obvious to me that they've just done a better job of doing Labour's own sectarian playbook.
Yeah, I mean, it appears that Labour's stance on Israel has sort of damaged its relationship with its Muslim voters. And so the Greens have really capitalised on that vote. And as you say, throughout the campaign, we saw it quite blatant visuals there that you were just showing. But I think it also shows to the rest of the country that when Starmer says Labour are the only party that can beat reform and device and division and hatred, that's just not the case anymore. This is quite a seismic moment in British politics, I think, because it shows that the two-party system is effectively dead. We are now fractured into sort of four parties. And it means that basically in the future it's going to be quite difficult to predict outcomes up until the next election. And so Starmer's got a real problem here with the Greens. Another point, actually, is that Jeremy Corbyn, who still has a very loyal base, by the way, and he is the leader of your party, came out today and said, congratulations, Hannah Spencer, we will work with the Greens. Now, if there is a formal alliance between those two, Starmer or the next Labour leader has a really serious problem. So I think there's a lot more of this sort of thing to come.
Here's what most people don't realise. Your personal data isn't just floating around. It's being bought and sold every single day by data brokers. That means employers, strangers, scammers, and even criminals can access it. And that's how identity theft, fraud, and harassment starts. Now, sure, you could try removing it yourself, but it takes hours of forms and emails, and even then, it usually pops right back up. That's why this video is brought to you by Incogni. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and demands your information is deleted from their databases, and they keep on doing it to make sure it stays gone. And they've just launched an unlimited plan with custom removals. So if your info appears on some random website, you can paste the link and their privacy team will personally work to get it taken down. It's simple. Click the link in the description, create your account, give permission, and they handle the rest. Head to incogni.com/GB News. And with the code GB News, you can get a huge 60% off an annual plan. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code now. It works out at less than a coffee a month. It's also totally risk-free for 30 days. Take back control of your personal data today with Incogni. And a big thanks to them for supporting the channel.
Yeah, Andy, it's the fracturing. Obviously, we've seen the fracturing of the right. That happened just before the general election, sort of played itself out over the last couple of years. And whilst there's always more things happening, the dust is starting to settle a little bit on the right as to where people align on policies. On the left, that fracturing has just begun.
I mean, the left has always been a very broad organisation, across the Green Party and the SDP,
but the umbrella,
and the Labour Party,
Party really
the Communist
has been
Party
the
of Britain.
Labour Party. Come on.
The Labour Party's only 120 years old, Alex. It's not been around for as long as the Tories, certainly. But, I think this idea that the Greens have won on a sectarian vote is a bit silly. This is a blonde woman who owns greyhounds, who works for a gay Jew whose party supports trans people. I don't quite know what's Islamist about that, to be perfectly honest with you, Alex. Tell me what's Islamist about that.
Let me just challenge you on that bit, because I don't think the people that went and voted for Hannah Spencer understood or even knew, as I said in my introduction there, knew about the policies on trans, LGBTQ+, on the environment.
Why are you talking down the voters of Gorton and Denton, Alex? Those fine working class people across Gorton and Denton, you think they're too stupid to read the policies? Is that what you're saying, Alex?
I think those voters that were written in Urdu, and I looked back at those campaigns, had nothing to say on those issues. So how would they know what their policy stance is when they don't understand or have been told even what the Greens stand for?
I mean, the Urdu thing was just a Zoran Mamdani dupe. They saw what he did in Spanish, they saw what he did in Arabic, they saw the things that he did in foreign language campaigning, and it's a fun little digital
There's not a single piece of election material I can find from the Greens in this by-election that references their stance on trans issues or legalising drugs or the environment.
Well, that's probably because, Matthew Goodwin followed the culture war stuff, the trans issue, the drugs issues, very closely, and he got defeated pretty soundly for it.
I think most working
class people in Gorton and Denton don't. I think a lot of people are concerned about working class people being killed in the genocide across the sea. I think they are concerned about that. But I don't think the trans and the drug stuff, this culture war stuff that is only really relevant in right-wing, middle-class London talking spots, is relevant to the working class people of Gorton and Denton.
To be fair, it was, it can't just be the sectarian vote, as it were, for the Greens win. I mean, a 26% swing from Labour to the Greens shows that Greens are really getting their act together. They had 2,000 activists yesterday canvassing, and they ran a really serious and coordinated campaign, which again, I think Starmer and Labour really underestimated, as probably Reform did as well.
I certainly agree with you, and I'm just reflecting on that as well. It is, as I said again at the top of my introduction, it's one of the safest left-wing seats in general. So the numbers were always going to go with a left-wing party. I actually think I might have spoken to you about this a few times, Ali, where I predicted it would be a Green win because Labour was performing so poorly in the polls, and all it took was a few thousand voters to go over to the Greens to all of a sudden have a surge for the Green Party, which would... The only way Reform could have won that seat was if both those parties were split down the middle, and even then they would have won it on a nice edge.
Exactly. I mean, Labour halved their vote from 2024, which is quite unbelievable. The last time they lost that seat was 1931. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely seismic and a real shock for Starmer. And as already we've seen, Labour backbenchers are calling for him to go. Unison has come out calling for him to go. Angela Rayner sort of tweeted, "We need to listen to the people," although she didn't actually have a reply on that one.
That was quite funny. She turned off the replies. We need to listen, but we'll turn the replies off.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me just play this clip for you. Eugene McCarthy, the chair of the London Green Party, responded to claims of sectarianism earlier on GB News. Sorry, we're having a few sound issues there. We'll try and play that clip for you in a bit.
I'm sure I was knowingly on the green line with that.
I think you were. I think you were very.
I'm sure
you were. I'm sure you were, Andy. But let's just go back to this broader point there. Was the chances that Reform were realistically going to win that seat when it's such a massive left-wing vote there?
Well, I think one of the things to point out, which is quite rare, Ellie as a political reporter will know this. The turnout was higher than the general election. By-elections often have a much lower turnout than generals. Occurs. So I think the fact that it had a high turnout showed that people cared about it. But when the left-wing vote is split in two, you expect a right-wing party to slip through because you've got division amongst the base. I think the fact that the Labour Party came third is, it's certainly something that Keir Starmer should take on board. But I don't think it's a shock. The government's unpopular. Andy Burnham, the perceived popular candidate, was barred from standing in the election. So Keir Starmer didn't exactly set up the Labour Party for a victory in this election. And I'm not shocked that a working-class plumber who's actually from the area won. To be perfectly honest, Matthew Goodwin, or Matthew Badloss, as they're calling him on Twitter, a southern academic who works in television, who, has basically no links to the constituency, bar that he briefly delivered pizzas there when he was at university.
Was his grandfather from that area?
Oh, was he? Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh, well, my grandfather was the mayor of Howdy Doody Town. Doesn't give me a right to that.
I've heard of
seat.
That
Well, it's a Mad Men reference. One for the culture amongst us.
One for the culture amongst you, yeah.
I think it's shocking that Reform UK did not win because the left-wing vote was split in two.
Okay. What do you think is that shocking? I don't think it was.
I actually think it was quite an impressive from Reform. As he said, I didn't think they were ever going to win.
He couldn't actually vote in the election, Matthew Goodwin, because he lives in Hitchin. He couldn't actually vote in the ballot. He didn't even vote for himself, Ellie Wheatley.
Did he not?
He did not.
Well, what I'm just saying is that, yes, you're saying this splitting Labour vote, but, the right-wing vote over there was very small. The Tories came fifth in the last election. Even in 2019, when there was that massive Boris landslide, they only got 8,000 votes in the general election up in that seat. So I don't think it's a shock that Reform didn't win.
Well, let's talk about the establishment parties, and I say Lab, Lib, Con there. So the
Do you think Reform are an establishment party?
No, well, they haven't ever been in office.
How many Tory MPs have they taken on board?
They've never been in office, Andy. Come on, don't be so silly.
Well, Robert Jenrick was a Secretary of State.
Labour Party's run a government. Liberal Democrats have run a government. The Conservatives have run a government. All right, let's just talk about the establishment. The parties that have been around for a very long time and worked and owned a government at some point in time. They polled under 30% collectively. There is a critical issue for them, isn't there? That their vote and their message just isn't getting through to the general public anymore.
Before I address that, the fact that Nigel Farage, a privately educated, briefly bankered career politician, is not part of the establishment, I completely reject. But on that point, I think populist parties are always going to do very well. Zach Polanski has doesn't have the burden of government. The Tories and the Labour have had to make serious decisions and have had to deal with the consequences of that. Reform, in the current state, haven't had to deal with that burden. So they are able to, make these silly promises and make these silly proclamations that the mainstream parties don't have to. But I think populist politics at this point in the term, you've had a new government after 14 years of the same. You're always going to see new blood coming up. The SPP in the 80s is a great example of that.
Okay, Ellie, do you think that the three parties I've mentioned, the Labour Party, Liberal Democrats, the Conservatives, are collectively suffering because the British public no longer trusts them?
Absolutely.
Or is there just a new appetite for fresh blood?
No, I think the Tories obviously are not trusted after the last 14 years. Starmer has failed spectacularly in the last 18 months or so, U-turn after U-turn, broken promise after broken promise. That's why they're so down in the polls. I think you're right, Andy, that Reform has the benefit of having a clean slate, but they are working quite seriously on being prepared for government, and we've seen a raft of new policies in some of the new sort of what they call shadow cabinet ministers.
Matt Goodwin's the shadow MP for Gorton and Denton now. I hear.
Yes, I just
you've got a real problem with Matt Goodwin, haven't you?
I think it is a legitimate thing. They haven't got record in central government as Reform UK.
Listen,
but
Andy, listen, I have to give Matt some credit. He stood for election. He put his name on the ballot. Most people who stand for election lose. That is a fact.
Why didn't he stand where he lived in Hitchin? Why didn't he stand where he lived in Hitchin? I'm sure there are 30 places he's got a vague connection to where he could have stood.
He stood in Manchester.
Why didn't he stand a local working class candidate?
He stood in a place where he felt like he had a connection. He felt that person. He was quite passionate about that. And at least he gave it a go. Right? And he came second, and it was a very strong second. He beat the government. It was highly unlikely he was going to win. He'd have to
he beat one of the most unpopular governments in history. Well done, Matt Goodwin. Yeah, you deserve a round of applause.
In a very safe seat. In a very safe place.
Gorton and Denton is not a real place. There's Gorton and there's Denton. Before the boundary review in 2023, it didn't exist. To be clear, but I think we've shown why all these defections, Andrew Rosendahl, Suella Braverman, Robert Jenrick, won't hold by-elections. Reform the losers by-elections. They lost the Cavilli by-election to Plaid Cymru. They lost this by-election.
They won in Runcorn and Hellsby. What are you talking about?
They won it by 5 votes, and they've lost
Six.
Is it 6?
Yeah.
They won the last 2. They've lost the last 2. Why won't they stand for those? Why don't we see more by-elections?
Well, let's find out. Maybe there will be. I won't hold my breath, but there we go.